Hey everyone, my name is Jacob Owens,
And I'm Amaya Bragg.
and for our Natural Resources Recreation and Ecotourism project, we were tasked with bird and bat box monitoring and repair at the John W. and Margaret Jones Langdale School Forest.
Our stakeholder for this project is Grant Rentz, the school forest manager. All nest boxes are on the Willistill tract of the school forest.
Amaya and I worked with Mr. Rentz in order to create some overall objectives for this project. Our first objective was to improve nesting habitat for eastern bluebirds, southeastern American kestrels, and bats on the school forest. The reason why we need to improve their nesting habitat is due to different changes in harvesting regimes in the southeast. We don't have old growth trees that have nest cavities. Due to this fact, we have to provide them with nest cavities as managers. We must also create additional nest boxes for southeastern American kestrel, as Mr. Ince desires to expand his program. We must also create a map including all of the nest box locations on the school forest.
To ensure these nest boxes are usable, they need to be cleaned and maintained. First, we cleaned out the unusable shavings and replaced them with fresh ones. We also cleaned out any webs or wasp nests that occurred within the nest that may deter kestrels from nesting within them. We also replaced the bent nail with a screw to help better hold the door closed in case any predators try to get through the door. We also installed aluminum flashing 6 feet above the ground to deter any predators from getting to the box during nesting season.
When maintaining the eastern bluebird boxes, it's a lot of the same procedures as when maintaining and cleaning the kestrel boxes. However, there are a few differences. Once we open the box, we remove whatever nesting substrates inside and we replace it with new shavings for the chicks to have insulation. Now, we also had to replace the hardware on these boxes because that nail is not going to hold anywhere near as well as a wood screw would in keeping predators out of the box. We also had to remove non-avian nests from the box, which included southern flying squirrels, which fill the box up to the point where eastern bluebirds cannot nest in there and they take over the box.
There's not much we can do to maintain the bat boxes because they can only be accessed through the bottom of the box. We confirmed that this was the case with the builder of the box, Dylan Shepard. Since they're not designed to be completely opened, we just inspected them from the bottom and made sure there was no spider webs or wasp nests inside them, and we just swept them out.
So when it came to building kestrel boxes, we were tasked with making 2 kestrel boxes from Mr. Rentz. However, we were given 4 pieces of lumber, which was enough to make 4 boxes. So we went ahead and created all 4 for him. These boxes were made of cedar. Mr. Rentz chose cedar because cedar is naturally rot resistant, even though it's harder to work with because of its easily splitting nature. So we had a few challenges while building these boxes, but we did get them all built. And once we built the boxes, we added a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of shavings to the bottom of each of them in order to provide insulation and something to stop the kestrel eggs from rolling around once they're inside the box and the mother's sitting on them.
We took a point at each box location to later use the GPX file to create a map. We differentiated not only by which species the box is for, but we also used the number on the box so we can better tell which box they are when we create the map. Creating this map will lead to more efficient maintenance for future workers since they won't have to search for the box like we did. The north arrow and the scale bar also will help aid any future workers to find the boxes.
So when it came to setbacks, we encountered quite a few while working on this project. The first and most foremost setback that we ran into was that we were told when initially informed of this project that there was several maps out there showing us the locations of these nest boxes, and we'd have to work to make them onto one shapefile. However, when we contacted Mr. Rentz about this, he told us that there were no maps of the existing boxes, and that we'd have to go out and find each of them. This ate up a significant amount of our time, ending up being 6 hours of our 10-hour project. So once we got rid of that, we went to each of the boxes, and when we got to the bluebird boxes, we found that over half of the boxes on the school forest property were infested with southern flying squirrels. And as mentioned earlier, southern flying squirrels make the nest boxes for kestrels no longer suitable for eastern bluebird nest success. So what we have to do as managers is, even though it helps out the southern flying squirrels, because these boxes are intended for eastern bluebird, we have to evict these southern flying squirrels from the boxes. So to do that, we physically remove each of the southern flying squirrels from the box, and then we have to remove all of the nesting material that they built up so that the bluebirds are able to nest in that box. Once we've done that, we replace it with the new shavings. However, some of the boxes, as you can see by the picture on the right, have been affected by squirrel activity more than others. So this one in the future will need to be replaced. Now, when we were done in the field, we went to go do our carpentry in the school forest workshop. When we began to work there, we started building the boxes. However, Amaya and I have never done carpentry work before, so it was a challenge to learn the techniques in order to create efficient and well-built structures. So our first box did not come out very well. However, as we continued our project, Skylar Hall happened to come by, and he's very experienced as a carpenter. So with his tips and tricks, we were able to create much better products for our last 3 boxes that we created. We also had problems getting tools and hardwares for building and maintaining the boxes. For example, we need at least a 20-foot ladder in order to maintain the kestrel boxes on the property. However, the largest ladder that Mr. Rentz had was not tall enough. So we had to go out and ask around the owl for people to give us a ladder. And fortunately, Mr. Philip Ford had a ladder that was tall enough. However, it was not designed for kestrel box maintenance on a telephone pole, so it was a little unsafe, although we did get it done. We also had to go between the school forest workshop and the Yow forestry workshop because all the tools were spread between the 2 locations, and we couldn't complete the job at just one location.
As mentioned before, time constraints prevented us from being able to put the boxes up. Because of this, we just mapped out the potential locations so they can be put up by Mr. Rentz at a time that's convenient for him or his school workers. In order for the future locations to be useful for kestrels, they need to be facing a southeast aspect so their temperatures can be controlled in the nesting season so the chicks don't get too hot in the boxes. Future locations will be on the Big Hill tract and the Willis Still tract.
We also have one experimental location that Mr. Rentz would like to try out. The most northeastern box on this map is that box. It is currently located in a site that has far too much vegetative cover for the southeastern kestrel nest success. However, Mr. Rentz is going to install a food plot directly south of the box, and there's an open field directly across the street where Mr. Rentz sees a lot of kestrels active. So he wants to try that spot while all the other ones are located in places that would have already good chances for kestrel nest success.
An open field is important for kestrels as they need that area to forage for their food like grasshoppers or moles.
So overall, we had great success with this project. We completed all objectives that we set out to complete. We found all boxes on the school forest property. We built Mr. Rentz's new nest boxes, and we were able to create maps that Mr. Rentz can use to maintenance these boxes in the future. We did end up producing more boxes than Mr. Rentz had originally intended. However, Mr. Ince had informed us after the fact that he was only going to put up one of our 2 boxes in the immediate future. So these extra boxes can be used when Mr. Ince is ready to expand his nest program, or these boxes can be used to replace current boxes when they become weathered, if they were not built with that same wood that we used. But a major problem that we had with our project was time constraints. This project was supposed to take us each 10 hours, and I ended up spending 17 hours while Amaya spent 15 hours on this project. So we didn't have the time frame to put up the nest boxes as we originally intended, but Mr. Rentz and his school workers can do this in a very timely manner.
There are many ways this project can be expanded upon. One of the most obvious ways to expand on this project is to have future students build more Bluebird boxes and expand on the Bluebird box program on the school forest. They can also identify future sites and help Mr. Rentz install the boxes. We could also add guano catchers underneath the bat boxes as a way to monitor if the bat boxes are being used and also to see how often they are being used. Informational signage can be added to the boxes to increase awareness of the importance for artificial cavities for the success of these species. Future projects could also expand on the amount of boxes being maintained by checking all the boxes on the ABAC properties, such as the Bluebird box in the cattle field across from the Yow.
There are a few people that we would like to thank when it comes to the completion of this project. First and foremost, we'd like to thank Mr. Grant Rentz for his willingness to help us and let us do this project on his school forest. We'd like to thank Dr. Vanessa Lane for especially making this project for us due to both of our backgrounds in nestbox programs. We'd like to thank Mr. Philip Ford for his ladder for doing our kestrel work, because without that ladder we wouldn't have been able to maintain the currently upheld boxes. And we'd also like to thank Skylar Hall for his tips and tricks that he provided us with to help us complete our nest box building.